We're on? Oh, no. Hello! Welcome back to the Album Awards, a quarterly show where I lasso some of the best and worst music I heard in a 3-month time period, and I package it up nicely for your viewing pleasure. This time we're looking back on Quarter 2, 2021, which ran from April 1st through June 30th, so every album I'm covering today, get this, has to have dropped during that time frame, with the exception of Patreon. Honesty time, I hate to say this about something I love, but this show is on life support. Every installment has gotten fewer views, likes, comments, and overall traction than the one before it since I launched it in early 2020. I try not to take it personally since I know it's probably more of a search results and watch time type of thing, but I need you to do me a favor right now if you love the Album Awards. Like, comment, and share as if there's no tomorrow, because there totally might not be. Anyways, I got a show to do. I've got almost 20 new releases to review, some of which I've talked about before, but most I haven't. Just because something got a dedicated review or even a quickie doesn't mean it's getting an award today, and keep in mind, I have no intention of hearing everything that came out. I played that game for years trying to keep up, and it takes the fun out of music for me. You may notice a few changes throughout, both visually and with the pacing. I'm trying to cut down on the overall length, but there I go again, shooting myself in the foot with this long-ass intro, so without further ado, roll out the red carpet for the Quarter 2 Album Awards. The Lightning Rod Award goes to Nowhere Generation by Rise Against. Nowhere Generation comes as a welcome reversal of fate. I was really pleasantly enthralled most of the runtime, and it only continued to break down walls through repeat listens. Tim McElrath annihilates these hooks with the kind of tenacity he carried in their glory days. Like, okay Tim, thank you. They feel so damn good you can't help but at least crack a grin, knowing that that fire never died. Zach Blair's shredding is irresistible. To see his guitar work complemented so well by the production and his bandmates is super refreshing. It's the kind of heart they haven't nailed down this well in at least a decade. Everyone's rocking this infectious lightning rod wave that rarely subsides, and when it does, it tends to make sense with the natural shift in the tone or emotion. Middle of a Dream is one of the best Rise Against tracks ever. The choppy drums and fervent message flat out kick ass, and then you've got other fierce melodic hardcore punk right in the zone of what they do best, like Monarch, Sudden Urge, and Sounds Like, packing enough heat to singe the skin. I can't stress enough how much of a return to form this is. From the moment the numbers barrels through you with an unbridled off-the-leash energy, saddle up cowboy, the bar just got set, and Rise Against keep kicking complacency in the face all over Nowhere Generation. Jubilee by Japanese Breakfast gets the Two-Sided Coin Award. Got a lot of requests to cover Jubilee by Japanese Breakfast, and I'm glad to see this catching on outside of the indie circles. This is primarily the musical project of Michelle Zauner, and up to this point, most of her music involved grieving through the lens of losing her mother. But now, in the face of even more hardship as the entire world caved in on itself, she turns the screw for a surprisingly buoyant third LP. Chiming visions placate the mind's eye with her sophisticated take on humanity. There's definitely pain at the heart of it all, but I feel like that's pretty accurate for most humans, right? Layering things on top of our pain to find a path to happiness? Maybe not, but that's the vibe I'm getting from some of the biggest aces, as the Beach Boys-inspired Kokomo, Indiana sorts through Young Love over some incredibly lush instrumentation, and the enchanting posing in Bondage feels a bit like watching an aerial silk dancer weave around the sky before unwinding in this incredibly satisfying way that immediately clears your head. I did feel that the back half collapsed on itself a bit as the songwriting felt less sturdy and the musical composition started to wander into less adventurous portions of this island she was building. There's goodness in there, and I'm sure everyone's gonna walk away with their own favorites, but I'm not convinced that In Hell or Savage Good Boy think far enough outside of the box to be fully memorable. Major respect for anyone willing to challenge themselves as an artist, especially one that's already established themselves and found some sort of fame. I'd argue these new cuts are packing way more layers than you'd catch at first glance, so don't look at this move away from hazy dreamscapes into alt-pop as a bad thing. The Restoring Force Award goes to Below by Beartooth. Beartooth hopped back in the saddle after a few relatively all-bark, no-bite drops that left me wondering, was Disgusting just some sort of one-hit wonder? Not to say that they've done nothing worth hearing since then, but 2014 was 7 years ago, and I'm starving. The millennial whooping past is dead gave off a belly full of cringe. I just wasn't here for that safe, cop-out, predictable route, but fortunately somebody showed me Devastation soon after, and that one sort of crushed my doubt down and gave me the green light to explore the full album. It's good! Not great, but really consistently solid for any fan of Beartooth and their hardcore punk meets melodic metalcore sound. It's also the heaviest anchor they've dropped since Disgusting, which I didn't see coming after Disease, but I appreciate the intensity knob getting cranked. I will warn you though, prepare to get blueballed after the first two songs Below and Devastation, because they're A, the best on the album, and B, the heaviest on the album. There's some solid riffs and performances after that, including the last riff, which pounds it out for an instrumental-only finale, but after a while, it's kinda like chasing a high that never peaks the way it used to do. Black Midi's Cavalcade gets the Outer Limits Award. My oh my, what is this strange specimen we have before us today? Could it be a relatively young, new band, and what's that? One that's willing to take the umbrella term rock music and make something that we haven't seen a million times already in nature? Well, there you have it. Evolution exists, unlike what my Christian school science book told me, and it's a species known as Black Midi. If you're looking for an unpredictable record inspired by rock, jazz, punk, prog, and the whole 9 yards, I've just introduced your next obsession. Abrasive but extraordinarily tempered, Cavalcade launches a downwards trajectory, not in quality, but in the decline of whatever character they're tying the heart of the ongoing stories to. It's not necessarily explicitly connected, although some of the recurring details might tell us otherwise, but there's a lot of similar valleys placed at intervals to let you know that you're in the dark forest of Black Midi, and they're the ones calling the shots. My personal best of the best moments were the explosive opener John L, of course Slow, which rampages the whole rock jazz niche perfectly, Dethroned, look out for the ending of that masterpiece, and Kanjo Maliasa Patella, which I've definitely just mispronounced, but not to worry, this is the type of band that makes me feel like I'm gaining IQ points just from having a casual listen. Expect the unexpected is what Black Midi's music pretty much shouts from the mountaintops without ever directly saying it. Call it a reset, a palate cleanser, an exciting new look for rock, it's all accurate, but personally, I feel they very rarely miss the mark with their controlled chaos, and I'm not even typically a huge fan of the experimental subgenres. This definitely lands among the year's best albums, and I'll give Cavalcade a strong 4.5. Typhoons by Royal Blood gets the Slippery Slope Award. For a band on the cusp of being modern rock superheroes, Typhoons sounds dangerously close to human, as the duo continuously search to expand their core sound without totally alienating fans. Now, I'm not saying this is anything close to the realm of bad, but LP3 does strike me as consistently inconsistent. How the hell did Who Needs Friends or the dreary ballad All We Have Is Now make the cut over that insane pair of B-sides Space and King? The legendary Josh Homme produced both of them and they sound incredible, so it's seriously confusing as to why they didn't get a wide release when Boilermaker made it clear that Josh's desert rock influence looks great on Royal Blood. The writing struggles to keep the hooks in, despite some lavish bass fury at the hands of their talented frontman Mike Carr, and Ben Thatcher has to temper the drums a bit to better suit the lighter rhythms that incorporate more outside instrumentation, so while there's plenty to like at surface level, Typhoons never truly goes for gold. Planet Her by Doja Cat gets the Failure to Launch Award. Yeah, okay, interesting argument. Yeah, this certainly is an album, but is it one that I'm going to remember before the year ends? Instead of a planet here, it feels more like a wormhole swallowing the light of a superstar in the making, as Doja Cat veers away from her most interesting assets straight into a hodgepodge of mainstream mediocrity. Coming off of the viral success of Say So and many of her other enjoyable hits from Hot Pink, Doja Cat threw herself straight into the center of the controversy ring to the point where I just had to start tuning it out. She's a talented all eyes on me performer, but Planet Her just just feels like a photo dump on Instagram, except it's an album. Versatility still bleeds through as you'd expect. It's what Doja Cat made her name on, so naturally genre hopping didn't just disappear overnight, but I was banking on more like the fuzzy guitar-driven R&B SZA collab Kiss Me More, and less like the truly unbearable troll Ain't Shit or the mind-numbing repetition of Get Into It Ya. The multiple personas and flows continuously battle it out, making for a pretty turbulent space flight that continues to shift consistency from track to track. The crisp pop trap banger I Don't Do Drugs with Ariana Grande stood out as a major highlight. In fact, most of the songs with features land among the best Planet Her has to offer. There's still a likable quality to a sizable handful, but a 14-track album shouldn't feel this hard to get through in one sitting. Bummer by Cleopatrick gets the Fat Lip Fighter Award. Loud, gritty guitar duo rock got reincarnated again by way of Cleopatrick, the Canadian rippers that really gained popularity during quarantine thanks to their older song Hometown. I got a devilish grin the first time I heard that one, so when my Patreon supporter Jonathan Christie requested a review of their debut album Bummer, I was feeling the opposite of that title. Negatives first, just to clear them out because they do exist. I think a lot of the songs sound the same. It's a 10-song, 28-minute short fuse. There's not much room for filler, yet the drop-off comes and stays starting somewhere around Y July. Bummer throttles immediately with a knee-jerk brand of honesty I really do appreciate. Cleopatrick keep it loud with their brand of speaker-blowing rock that might remind you of Royal Blood's debut album, albeit with less bass and way more guitar. Victoria Park calls out fake friends and ones that fall for online scams and definitely gets a few head nods from me as I think of a few people I'd love to at with the lyrics. Good Grief shows the exact kind of build the duo can nail with some well-executed dynamite switch flips, and right before that, Family Van crushes a rival band that apparently ripped off one of their songs. I love how aggressive they get, and that attitude is part of what makes them such a good thing for rock right now. Let's agree though, The Drake is the best song on the album, right? The idea of them writing a song based on a high school bully showing up in the audience at their first big gig is such a cool and fresh perspective, but the way they get the adrenaline pumping with a middle finger, sorry, should have been nicer to me, now fuck off, makes it even more bonkers. I fucking love it. The bridge is so good, it collapses after they speed over it. Give Bummer a spin if you need something to vent that pent up energy to. I'm rating this album Bummer a strong 3.5 out of 5. Taking home the Star is Born award is Olivia Rodrigo for Sour. Like it or not, Olivia Rodrigo is here to stay, even though I had absolutely no idea who she was until January. Driver's License broke virtually every streaming record in the books, and the subsequent debut album Sour is living proof that she is not a one-hit wonder. Olivia might struggle with wearing her influences a bit too blatantly on her sleeve, those ranging from Taylor Swift, like All the Time, to 90s grunge to Lorde, but God, she's so young, the rest of the story is just waiting to be written. There's a bright future out there, and I can't wait to see what she comes up with. The Inspired Influence Award goes to Greta Van Fleet and The Battle at Garden's Gate. Hate 'em, rate 'em, throw 'em under the bus, I could truly give a shit if music critics are supposed to crucify Greta Van Fleet like it's their religious duty to do so. The Battle at Garden's Gate is a cut above their first full album, and it's a sophomore effort that proves they have the skills to evolve way beyond the tag of Led Zeppelin ripoff. Jacob Kiszka truly stands out as the superstar of the album with some absolutely delicious guitar work. I always love to hear creative playing shaping up the backbone of a track, and he brought a lot of that creative spark to the way he approached writing riffs for the album. The soloing alone shows off his growth, but it's the commitment to detail that makes his contributions unmistakable. Walk in with an open mind and shit, who knows what's gonna happen? Sure, it's overly long, it's got some filler content, but that's relatively minor compared to the epic velocity in which they transcend to explore the different perspectives and struggles of humanity. In fact, a few of my favorite rock songs of the year have a home at Garden's Gate, and I stand by my original rating. The Slow Slip Into Madness Award goes to Bo Burnham's Inside. I'm with Bo, yo! The man's been making me piss myself with laughter and tears since I was in high school. We're basically the same age, and just by me saying that, yes, you probably know exactly where I'm going with this, Inside is a fucking roller coaster, man, and I relate to these hilariously tragic songs way more often than I'd probably like to admit. Bo's a genius, and even I, as a self-proclaimed longtime fan of his, I think I missed a lot of the nuance some of the songs from the special truly have. They just keep getting catchier and darker and more meta as he breaks down his entire life right before our eyes. In fact, I've been listening to some of the major highlights on repeat to the point where I'm considering getting a tattoo inspired by one of the songs. It's insane. The simplistic structures range from buzzing synth pop to auto-tune descents into madness, and pretty much all of it works gloriously. I'm so happy the songs are living on well past the hype of just the Netflix special, so while I would encourage you to watch that for context, how Inside lives on or defines modern life is totally up to you. The Seasoned Pro Award goes to metal act Gojira for Fortitude. Y'all know I'm not the biggest metal guy on the block, and therefore I often feel out of my element when asked to cover it, but Gojira, they just kinda clicked immediately. They're straight up nasty with the menacing riffage, and the songs they build out take on these progressive canal-like structures that all leads to beautiful heavy mayhem. I love some of the most heralded classics, sure, like From Mars to Sirius, but given that I'm relatively new here, can I say that Fortitude fucking slaps too, and I'll be damned if some of the best metal tracks of the year don't live here? Off-the-rails creative freedom with a persistent plea to save our planet is the battle cry heard around the world on album 7. But the key to its message not getting buried is their ability to bring new heat to the subject matter without getting overly preachy to the point where it feels like listeners would be turned away. They're decades into their career, the music is still slapping all over the place, and the diverse pipes that Joe Duplantier wields are second to none, but I have to say, it is kinda sucky that it seems like so many bands are front-loading their records with bangers out of the gate these days, and then it's like they're chiming in and out with quality in the late stages of the album, but with this one, maybe it was just that the unintentional bar was set so high by the face-smashing trio of openers that the rest just couldn't keep up. Born for One Thing rattled my curiosity like an earthquake before the album, and Another World marched its way to victory, topped off by a really exciting instrumental break. But Amazonia is what I'm here to sell you on. This is Gojira firing on all cylinders with a nasty lead riff, slamming drums, and a slightly groovier bounce to really nail home their tribute to the Amazon. Other cuts ranging from the slow-lit fuse, the chant, to the chugging train track suspense into the storm really do fit into the big picture excellence too. I would recommend checking out Fortitude in full because Gojira remain a dominant force this far into their career. They've adopted some new influences for sure, as they kind of prevent themselves from walking circles in purgatory, but they don't sacrifice all of the things that make them great, including those beautiful pick scrapes we worship at night. The Golden Casket by Modest Mouse collects the Virtued Patience Award. The absolute look of disgust steaming from the faces of old Modest Mouse fans who were trying to listen to the band in their modern form but just can't form any sort of connection is kinda hilarious to me. I was a late bloomer in that I wasn't on board till the ship started sinking, so Antarctica wasn't my baby when it came out, and I didn't really have these insurmountable expectations for new material. Golden Casket arrived after yet another brutally long gap between albums, but I honestly found a lot to like despite some glaring inconsistencies. It's refined and clever, with just enough bizarre energy to even out the more emotional stride Isaac Brock brings to the other half, as he kinda sits back and reflects, which is great to hear him do, cause I know the man's seen some crazy shit in his career. This is not an AOTY contender, but it's in no way awful. Really, it's a step up even from their last album, Strangers to Ourselves, which also wasn't bad, just more forgettable. My favorites tend to vary based on the time of day I'm listening, which is cool. If it's daytime, I'm feeling the loud guitar strikes wooden soldier zones, or maybe the almost punky Japanese trees, but if it's night driving mode, Fuck Your Acid Trip is just great, and the emotional lace your shoes slowly melts the heart away. Isaac's proud of his kids. Aww. Modest Mouse may have peaked a long time ago, but that doesn't mean they belong in the garbage bin. There's still plenty of good times to be had for an album called The Golden Casket, and I'm giving it a 3.5. Wolf Alice take home the Storyteller Award for Blue Weeknd. A collective sigh of relief the size of the entire United Kingdom exhaled after The Last Man on Earth landed, which marked the return of Will Fallis and served as the starting pistol for the interpersonal marathon known as Blue Weeknd. Mature reflections from the skilled mind of frontwoman Ellie Roselle have this vibing like your favorite coming-of-age film, except it's real life. Blue Weeknd is easily one of my top favorites this year, with the replay value so damn high, you're quickly gonna adopt it as the soundtrack to your 20s and early 30s. The vivid lyrics paint a wonderfully honest portrait of aging, but in a sincere, sometimes loud, but overall accepting manner. Ellie's voice is more striking than ever, the coveted 3-album run is officially complete, and her bandmates clearly have a telepathic understanding of how to elevate her without shedding the addicting atmospheres that made them one of the best things to happen to guitar music in the 21st century. The Retirement Party Award goes to AFI's Bodies. No, detective, I haven't been super invested in AFI's career this side of burials. I can't help but feel as though Davey Havok ran out of talking points at some point during the past decade, and A Fire Inside has slowly turned into a lengthy PowerPoint presentation that's begging us to hang on, it's all gonna be worth it, but instead it's just another album. An album for which they released 7 fucking singles out of 11 songs before it even dropped. Why did that happen? I got a lot of people wanting me to talk about Bodies, a title that absolutely does not fit it, mind you, and I just don't think they gave me a lot to talk about. It's better than the Blood album, but given how negatively I felt towards that one, it wasn't a hard bar to clear. I'd love to hear more bass-heavy journeys like Delceria from AFI, and Looking Tragic is surprisingly great. I've been jamming that 80s meets early 2000s glam jam since it dropped, but I just can't really fake an interest in most of what they're pumping out. The Butterfly Cocoon Award goes to Sister Act Ali and AJ for A Touch of the Beat. I had to give Ali and AJ a spot after hearing their first full album in like a really long time. I was a literal child the last time they dropped, and I know they did the whole 78 Violet thing for a while, it's not like they were impossible to find, but this is a beautiful embrace of not only their old moniker that I just didn't see coming, but also the lovely way they went about crafting A Touch of the Beat. First listen, there was a lot of head bopping going on. Second listen, I was really coming to appreciate the musical atmosphere rooted in live instrumentation, and from that point forward, I was just straight up vibing to one of the best pop records I've heard all year. Put this on if you don't think pop is a dirty word and you're open to something that clearly puts extra effort into making these gears turn. Their voices are still chemically aligned. It's a mood lifter, and I'm gonna give A Touch of the Beat a 4. The Tragically Hip's 2002 album In Violet Light gets the Throwback Award. First and foremost, as an outsider looking in, rest in peace, Gord Downey. I heard his name, and I even heard his band name here and there, but I never knew the Canadian treasure's music during his lifetime. But now that my patron Brandon Barenfield has requested a throwback review of their 2002 album In Violet Light, I'm finally touching base with the Tragically Hip in album form for the first time ever. There's a sentimental quality to both the production and writing. It feels very lived in, meaning it's comfortable in the way it shines. I didn't even check the release date on my first spin, and I just assumed it was from the late 90s, but this actually dropped in 2002. I guess that checks out, but what mostly stands out to me is just how good the songs sound 2 decades later. Gord's vocals roar with life, but also drift into the realm of deadpan delivery. For example, Silver Jet is one of the best songs on the album, and it also works out the best of both tones, while a sharp guitar pulls out some beautiful accent work to really make this one a major highlight. After reading over the lyrics a few times, you really do have that light bulb moment where you realize how specific to Canada the Hip can be. Those geographical mentions, along with their knack for tender harmonies, make for some of their most obvious calling cards. They do have a tendency to hit lulls almost on cue, conjuring up a small pack of songs that feel like they overstay their welcome, like Leave or Use It Up, which sounds familiar the longer it stays around, but maybe that has to do more with the songs surrounding it rather than the song itself. One last mention, A Beautiful Thing gets the gold medal. This is a knockout performance all around. It seems to be about letting go of the fear of death, or maybe just about confronting death in general, and it's happy sad, peppy and bright with some great guitar work, and the verses are so highly addicting that when it drops into the chorus and Gord's vocals fly, it all just sounds absolutely mesmerizing. This definitely opened the door for me with the Tragically hip. I hope to explore more of the records down the line, and with In Violet Light, I feel like this album is entirely human. It's grounded by reality, but it never stops looking up, which I find to be a truly beautiful thing. Lucy Dacus gets the Wow Right in the Feels award for home video. After falling head over heels for the music of Phoebe Bridgers and having already established my enjoyment of Julian Baker, the last step of the boy genius puzzle was Lucy Dacus, and damn do I hate myself for being late, she's great! I checked out Historian before diving into home video, and there's an instant tether to her world. The way Lucy sees things, it's like a pent-up bed spring ready to give and take. Everything feels refreshing, or at the very least eye-opening as she tears at her various battle scars, but home video took that a step further to peek into not just her own life, but the pain of those relationships surrounding her. There's an extra layer to the writing that I find fascinating, considering I was raised in a religious home myself. Her faith and subsequent steps away from the straight and narrow path collide in both subtle and head-on ways in the track list. My favorite song on the album is actually VBS. Her voice complements the campfire guitars so well, but the story itself is the backbone I can point to. Like there's the spark. That's what makes Lucy Dacus incredible. From the blunt force quiet rage of Thumbs to the spirited rocker First Time, there's an excellent spread of indie to put on your plate, yet nothing feels like it doesn't belong. So basically the opposite of a trip to Golden Corral. The folkier tones of Cartwheel gel just as well as the epic closer Triple Dog Dare. It's like standing in the middle of a giant room while a group of screens project home video on the ceiling. No filler, a ton of gems, high emotional payoffs. This is one of the best albums of 2021. Tyler, the Creator, gets the Andy Warhol Award for Call Me If You Get Lost. Versatility is never in short supply with Tyler. The older I get, the more I realize I've underestimated his range one too many times. DJ Drama hosts this project and lends hype man vocals to almost every track, which is something I was unsure of at first, but now that I'm still buzzing over this more than 10 listens in, it's safe to say that an album like this benefits from a wingman to his expertly timed flexing. It's hard to even fathom how you could go about bringing something fresh to the idea of modern rap, where so much has gotten weighed down and very cringy, predictable bars about flexing, about wealth, about everything that you could imagine. But then Tyler kind of stuck his foot in the door and said, hold up. What if I flex, but also keep it real and remember the downsides to my lifestyle too? Love is one of those dilemmas tackled. He leaves cookie crumbs in the early tracks talking about how he's been cut out of a love triangle, some other guy got picked over him, the fact that he's taking L's for a girl, and I love that Call Me is a true album with a story like that. The songs reward you not just in the moment, but if you look at all the clues, all roads lead to one of Tyler's greatest achievements of his entire career, the 8-minute one-take Wilshire. You'll walk away from that with a dropped jaw or maybe even a tear in your eye if you've been there before, but what stunned me even more than the jazzy down-tempo groove that sounds so good with that smooth drum and bass, or even Tyler's technical skill, is the incredible sense of self-awareness. You're gonna hear him do that many times throughout the project, but never quite like this. His ability to tell the story objectively, to admit that he was in the wrong. The career-spanning Massa blew me away too, with some really organic instrumentation, and Manifesto confronted some difficult topics from Tyler's past behavior, cancel culture defiance, and the way that he chose to handle himself and stay more behind the scenes when it came to his involvement in the Black Lives Matter movement. The sway of the beat and the Domo Genesis feature stir the pot to the point of boiling, and cuts like that in Corso are absolute beasts that never hesitate to go all in. Here we are at the end of the ceremony of the Quarter 2 2021 Album Awards. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on any of the albums that I talked about today, along with any thoughts that you had on my thoughts. Please hit that like button, tell a friend about this show, subscribe for the love of music, and of course, other than that, you can check out a couple of recent videos on screen now, including Quarter 1, and I'll be back soon for more right here on ARTV.